Now then, welcome back. So we're turning to GAA. The draw for round 3 of the qualifiers made this morning, as you might expect. Some interesting games to look forward to. Kildare Tyrone at Newbridge is going to be on Sky at 5 o'clock. Throw in there at 5. Westmeath will play Clare. That's at Cusack Park at 6. Then at Castlebar at McHale Park, Mayo will play Armagh at 7 o'clock. That one also on Sky. And Laois play Offaly on the Saturday night as well. That's in Portlaoise at 7 o'clock. To recap on the weekend, the 3 provincial football finals went the way we expected. Kerry beat Cork by 3 points, tighter than expected. Donegal, very impressive, 124 to Cavan's 216. Their 5th Ulster in 10 years. And then the less said about Leinster, the better, as is becoming the case too often. Dublin, 117 to Meath's 4 points. Elsewhere in round 2 of the qualifiers, if you didn't catch the results, Kildare beat Antrim, put 28 points on the board. That was a bit of a mismatch. Laois beat Derry by 4 points. Tyrone went to Pearse Park. Only won by 4 against Longford, but were very comfortable. Westmeath hung on against Limerick in the end. Clare beat Leitrim 317 to 17 points. Armagh have become the great entertainers. They beat Monaghan, Malachy O'Rourke stepping down afterwards, 217 to 112. Mayo won against Down on the Saturday night by 5, and John Mahon's Offaly have regrouped very well through the qualifiers. They beat Sligo by 11 points after beating London by 10 in the last round. We have Kieran Donaghy and Brendan Devenney with us. You're there, lads?
Hi, Joe. Yeah, we're here.
Good to have you with us. Hey, let's start with Kerry Cork then at Porky Queeve. Kieran, it was, I got to the game 8 minutes late. I was racing back. I sat down. It was 1-2 to Kerry. And I thought, wow, I've missed the game already after just 8 minutes. It was looking ominous for neutrals and for Cork fans. But Cork made a game of this.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they started really running at Kerry after that initial period where Kerry came out and were quite dominant, and Tom Sullivan's goal kind of settled Kerry down. And yeah, after 13 or 14 minutes, when it's 1-5 to a point, you're sitting there as a Kerry fan and you're kind of confident, you're happy, your team are playing well, your team are moving well. But then Cork ratcheted it up, and in fairness, Cork were at it from the very start. They were wired into Gainey and Clifford inside. Their half-backs were hopping off our half-forwards. They had a real edge about them. Even at that stage of the game, when it wasn't going their way, they never wilted in that respect. And they certainly then brought the fight to Kerry and started running at them. And, the goal chance for Rory Dean followed by the goal that they actually got when Luke Connolly tipped it over Shane Ryan's head. That really, you could see a bit of belief course through the veins. Even in supporters around me, it was the first time they kind of let out a roar. And I think from kind of there on, they grew into the game. And yeah, it was a bit empty there, not like the old Páirc Uí Chaoimh, but certainly with 3 or 4 minutes to go with a level game and the Rebels singing in the Black Rock end and me getting it into the ear from a few Rebels around us as well, made kind of almost felt like a Munster final was back.
Yeah. You deserve no less. Just over 18,000 at the game. It had been a feature and much of the talk around Kerry across the league that Peter Keane was very focused on shoring up that Kerry defence. Were you surprised at the way Cork were able to run so directly and so routinely through Kerry's defence? What was going on?
Yeah, no, I was surprised because certainly in the league, Peter and his management team had kind of really shored up the back. I think Crowley is a big loss there. I'll be honest, Joe. He's Peter Crowley is a big. He was the kind of would have been the key leader of this defence, and to have him out, he's a big player for Mo. But you can't put it down to any one person. But yeah, I was disappointed, and
what tends to be the issue when a defence is gettable by direct running? Like, there's almost an air of confusion. Who's picking up who? When do we press the man on the ball? When do we not? Like, is that an easy thing to fix, or is there a bit of looking around? It's almost a systemic thing as much as anything, I would presume.
Well, I'd almost make it as simple as, Joe, when we were training every day as a Kerry footballer, and when you're a young fella in Kerry, you're taught kick the ball. So we don't really have to defend running that much. Even in training, we would have, even our Kerry team back in the day, always struggled against Cork's running half-back line of Noel O'Leary, Paddy Cassan, Michael Shields, Anthony Lynch, whoever was out there. Because when we played and when we trained, we kicked the ball through the lines, we moved it through the lines, and then all of a sudden, the guy you're marking isn't kicking the ball at all. He's just running like a raving lunatic off your shoulder, and you're going to have to follow him. So it could be as simple as that we don't we're not used to that type of play, and we do struggle with it. It's no coincidence that we struggle with teams that run at us, because we don't really do a lot of running at us ourselves in training. We do a lot of what we want to play is kick the ball and move the ball. And maybe they could look at maybe getting a B team to really, if we're playing a running team at a stage in the Super 8s, and most teams are kind of mixing it up now, so we can't be as naive just to think everybody's going to kick the ball against us. It's going to be a bit of both. But I certainly think, looking at it the last day and looking at the way Cork were just blindly running down the pitch and running off people's shoulders, they didn't care if they were going to get the ball or not. They were just going. And that's a bit disorientating to handle when you're kind of in your 3 weeks build up to a Munster final. Everything in training is, you don't have to worry too much about your man. You can drop back, you can help, you can look over your shoulder to help out the defenders. You can't really look over your shoulder to help out the defenders if there's opposition defenders flying off you. You have to follow them, you have to track them. So then fellas that were kind of in help defence positions, probably in training, and probably would have been told to be in help positions. Your help position goes fairly out the window. If a guy comes flying off you at 100 miles an hour, you got to go follow him. That becomes your kind of thing you're looking at then, and then maybe you're starting to forget about help defence, which is why maybe they were so open at stages. Yeah,
it's a very interesting point. Brendan, I'm sure you're looking on with interest at Kerry. They're going to be in the Donegal Super 8 group. Peter Keane afterwards was certainly of the opinion that the performance was far from perfect, but by the same token, he was saying 5 of the Kerry players were playing in their very first Munster final. The average age of the half-forward line was just under 21 years old. And, maybe there's something to be said for a bit of adversity and coming through a bit of adversity and coming through the last 10 minutes with Paul Gainey sent off. Did their stock go up or come down for you?
Still huge question marks, Joe. I suppose last year it's 5 or 6 new players in the championship too, so that all put into the mix. I suppose it's a newish team, it's a common team. Like a lot of teams, all the top players that's been on earth around the country, they all seem to be forwards. Everybody wants to play as a forward, and after 7 in a row, you'd think there'd be big plaudits for that, but it's so scrutinised now because of the bar that Dublin have set so high that everybody's looking at everything, and you look at every team now, particularly the top teams in the division, and every game they play, you're looking, if that was Dublin, how would they get on? If that was Dublin, that's a constant question that's going on. And I was just thinking about the relegated teams. Cork relegated Division 3 this year. Come on, they've had a good championship so far. That was a lot higher performance than everybody thought. Roscommon relegated. They won Connacht. Cavan relegated. Great championship for them. First Ulster France in 2001. So Donegal, I suppose, well, coming from Division 2. So I think we have to reevaluate what we think of the league and what's going on in the leagues now. We were thinking it was so important, and now you have to Kerry being in a league final, Mayo being in a league final. You think this is a big push coming on. All of a sudden, after a few FA Championship games, you're thinking, where are they at? And certainly, even if you put the wides in the context, I mean, Cork at 9 wides, there are 3. If you throw a few more of them in the mix, anything could have happened yesterday. Yeah.
What about Cork, Kieran? Much improved on last year, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think Ronan has to get a lot of credit for what he has set up, and they just came to play, Joe. It was they came to fight for the jersey, and it just shows you it counts for an awful lot. They could have very easily thrown in the towel. Everything was set up for them to actually throw in the towel. They were a boxer after taking 2 or 3 big haymakers, and the easy option would have been to stay down on one knee, but they rose up, they kept going, they kept running, they kept playing for each other. And when they started to get a little bit of light through the running game, it only galvanised them more, and there was fellas running. They really, when the final whistle went, I was looking out and I saw 4 or 5 Cork fellas hit the ground. And they didn't hit the ground through disappointment. They didn't hit the ground they hit the ground through pure exhaustion. And as a coach and as a manager, I think that's all you can expect from your team. And the Cork fellas certainly can't be questioned about what they put into the jersey and what they put into that Munster final. But certainly they were full value for their performance. And a very young Kerry side. Guys that have won an awful lot at underage level and have sailed through their underage career, been put to the pin of your collar in a tie game below in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, as you said, down to 14 men without Paul Gainey for the last 16 minutes. So, they will certainly take huge credit. Diarmuid O'Connor, I thought, was outstanding at left half forward, gave us real energy. Clifford showed pieces of magic. I think we need to kind of work on getting them the ball in quicker. I think our half-back line are so good at carrying the ball that I think the inside guys are kind of unsure when to go or when they're going to get their heads up.
Yeah.
So I think the Kerry management have to work on that side of the game. And
what would you like? Bit of a mix, like sometimes carry and sometimes let it in early.
Absolutely, a bit of very like Dublin, a bit of a mix. They kick the ball when it's on, but they're always looking. And if they look up and there's nobody on, they keep soloing, they keep going, and that's where they come into the corners where they're getting their loop cuts and they're getting their back doors that we saw a number of times yesterday against Meath, where the defender gets a bit high because he thinks the guy's coming on the loop, and then at the last second he's cutting back door and along the end line, and it's very hard to defend. But they clearly have that worked on, that if they don't kick the ball in and they're now playing the running game, well, there's certain movements to do off a run and there's certain movements to do off a kick pass. So they and also defensively, I think Kerry will have to start working on pushing teams down the sideline like Dublin did again, and we have to copy the best. That's how you get better. Dublin yesterday, they pushed every Meath man. They actually didn't go to tackle him at all early on in the play. They stood back from him. They showed him the sideline. They said, there's the sideline, there you go, and I'm going to chase you down. And you had cornerbacks from Meath running down the line yesterday with a Dublin corner forward running after him. And when they got up to the middle of the field, when they tried to turn back to get away from the pressure, there was another player coming from behind. So they're just very well drilled, and I think Kerry need to work on something like that, where they're getting teams out of the middle, block the middle, and give teams the sideline, and work on the sideline's your friend in basketball. Joe, we use the sideline like an extra man. It's
all fields, all sports. All sports.
And you can be rough and physical in football, so you can, if you get a guy near line at all, you can try and get him out or get the ball out.
Yeah.
But when you're letting teams come down the middle and you're going for the kill early, and I thought Meath did that an awful lot yesterday. It was youthful exuberance, and it was. You could call it good effort, but what it actually was, it was killing them in the end. They were going for the kill at times where they had to kind of almost, coolness had to prevail up here, and they'd say, okay, I'm not going to get this ball, so now I have to try and figure out what's best for my team to not let this Dublin guy out past me. Too often they went for the kill and missed, and Dublin got out. And once Dublin get out and get an extra man against you, it's going to be a long day. So I'd like to see Kerry work on getting teams out of the middle, pushing teams down the sideline and trapping and using your sideline as your friend.
Brendan, Donegal then, free scoring. You have to go back to 1933 for a bigger score in an Ulster football final. 27 points in the end. All Donegal forwards had scored by the 42nd minute. There were 12 different scorers in total. They are a team full of verve and energy. The players look like they've had a serious run of training. They look like Croke Park will suit them. Must be pretty excited up there.
Yeah, you just took all my stats there, Joe. I haven't much more else to say.
Sure, that's what you've done. You put too much work into these things.
So enjoyable, and I guess from a Donegal perspective, that's exactly what we wanted it to be. We wanted to let all these talented players that we have get out and get up and play and show their skills. If I'm thinking from a Cavan perspective, Cavan had to unsettle Donegal. They had to ruffle them. They had to get about them. And from day one, it just didn't seem to be anything that was going to happen. Previous to this, the likes of Jason McLaughlin had marked Jamie Clark fairly well. Faulkner, the fullback, had marked Conor McManus very well. I thought they'd really get tight on other guys, man for man, get up and in about them, ruffle Donegal, and when the ball came in inside the Cavan 45, the sweepers who were back needed to clamp, needed to get around the Donegal players. I don't think Donegal could believe how easy it was at times. I mean, there's a few times, particularly I think Hugh McFadden twice in the first half, strolling into the 45, no one came near him, and you were just like, where is everybody? Where is the Cavan defence? And it was all too easy. I mean, Donegal, I suppose, the big thing, if you look at the top team, obviously we keep looking at Dublin, the biggest thing you'd have to say that Dublin have in their army outside their talent is their composure. They just have this real cool mentality all the time, in possession, out of possession, as a group, defending back, going forward, no matter what, hit a wide, hit a point, nothing changes, nothing phases them. And Donegal are getting that same level. Now, have they got the same amount of players, that talent yet? I'm not too sure. But in terms of the whole team knowing exactly where they're at, and I just think they had a small tactic the last day with McShane inside. Donegal were a wee bit under pressure with a high ball. As soon as Cavan lined up a long ball in yesterday, you could see Jason McGee, Hugh McFadden, Michael Murphy dropping right down around the house to protect it. And then when Donegal broke up the pitch, I mean, maybe I felt a bit sorry for Cavan. There was so much pace and ability on the ball. The pitch was immaculate condition yesterday. Everything was moving that fast. Sean Patton was just unbelievable in kickouts. I mean, squeeze up on him. He had some long fall back a bit. All he needs is 2 steps and bang. I mean, a couple of his kick-outs yesterday landed in the opposite 65, Donegal on the attack. So complete control. Jimmy Brennan, top scorer in Ulster now, probably the best forward in Ireland at the minute. Him stepping up the plate has been absolutely massive, because before that there was so much pressure on McBurty inside, and McBurty still coming back from that injury. You know, by his own standards, still that bit rusty, but he is getting better and better. You notice as the game goes on, he gets sharper and sharper. But it's hard to mention any players. I mean, if Patton come out and took 45s, we could get to the stage where the whole Donegal team would score. You know, it's just phenomenal stuff. When you look at other teams at the minute trying to get that level, it's about, because everybody's playing a blanket defence, everybody has to be capable of kicking a point. And with Donegal, they've got scores all over the pitch. Such a hard thing for Cavan to deal with yesterday. And I think for them, I suppose, getting relegated 2001 last Ulster final, as much as they didn't want to hear that going into the game, making an Ulster final was massive for Cavan. I mean, there was a sea of blue there when it came into Clonus first yesterday. And what I loved about it was they never gave up on the pitch or their supporters. You know, it was fantastic to see. And when they got that run, you just knew, could they get a wee run, could they get a goal and a couple of points and maybe shake Donegal. They get 3 points in a row in the second half, and then bang, Jimmy Brennan goes up the pitch, sticks the ball in the back of the net. But in fairness, even with them late goals of Cavan's, they were all cheered. So you got to say they've brought so much to the championship so far. And if they could make it into Super 8s, I think because the will and the age range of the team and that, they could take a few steps forward. They're definitely improving, and a lot less down to Mickey Graham and Dermot McCabe.
Kieran, obviously the growing consensus is that Donegal are best placed of anybody to stop Dublin. Do you go along with that?
Yeah, on the evidence so far this year, I do. Yeah, because they're just they're solid in the middle of the field with McGee and McFadden. Big and strong out there, but mobile as well. Both guys get box to box very well. I think McGee got 2 points, and I remember McFadden catching the ball, the one high ball maybe that Cavan played in around the house at one stage. McFadden was back there catching it in a group of 4 or 5 men. You know, Jamie's his pace is not only scary, but he's smart with it. He's smart when he uses it. Murphy is a colossus. I heard somebody recently pointing out what he'd scored in big games, as if scoring was the only thing that matters in a big game. Whereas if you want him to score, like the All-Ireland final in 2012, he'll score. If you need him to come out and do a job, he'll come out and do a job. Very much like me at club football. At times in my career, I would have been kind of inside when we were going well, outside if we're struggling, back inside. It was very much, and I see a lot of that with Michael Murphy, but he never lets it faze him. He just goes about his business. He's just such a leader, such a team player. And if he was really worried about scores, he could go out and score 6 or 7 points every game. But it's not even in his dictionary. His dictionary is about leading Donegal, about showing these Donegal players that it is all about Donegal. It's about no one guy individually. It's about your performance. Delighted to see Paddy McBurty out there playing so well yesterday. Yeah. And Brendan might be right. He might still be a bit rusty, but it's a bit scary if he's still rusty on his performance yesterday of what may be to come. But they certainly do have the forwards that can trouble Dublin. Their backs, obviously, will be in for a bigger test down the line when they come up against these teams. But, on yesterday's evidence as a very cohesive unit, they got a great backroom team. Bonner obviously has brought in Carl Lacey. He's brought in Stephen Rochford, who's got, who I'm sure will bring an awful lot to them. So they've got all the ingredients to probably best rattle Dublin at this time.
On Michael Murphy, Donegal have won 10 Ulsters now. Murphy's captained them to 5 of them. So it's hard to overstate the influence he's had in Donegal football in their history. You mentioned Rochford. Enda McGinley was on OTB GAA this morning talking about that very thing, the influence he thinks Rochford is having on this Donegal team. Have a listen.
I think Donegal were trying to change a wee bit last year. They toyed a wee bit in the earlier part of the season with going more offensively. They're always toying where to play Michael Murphy. Certainly this year they are more offensively set up. Now that's not to say they're all out offence. Definitely not. Both against Tyrone and Cavan, they had high numbers back in their own defence at times. Their link-up play, their ability to really go at teams, their ruthlessness has all increased. How much of that is down to Rochford, I don't know, because I think the talent was within that Donegal squad anyway. They were all 19, 20, a lot of them yesterday, 21, 22. So they were at an age that they were going to be improving a lot anyway. But I think Rochford coming in, it gives an added impetus, as Ryan was saying. But massively, I think just the whole setup, there's something really impressive about it. From Michael Murphy to Declan Bonner, your two lead men, the lead man on the line and the lead man on the pitch. Michael Murphy, everybody knows what the story is there in terms of his level of ability, yet the man himself is as humble and as grounded and as selfless as anybody you would like to meet. In terms of the manager, to bring in Stephen Rochford again, as touched on in the interview, that's a huge statement to the players that this isn't about any one individual. This is about any bit that we can make us better, we're going to do it. Whether some of us needs to take a backward step or lose a bit of profile, well then that's all for the good of the team. That's nothing. And for the manager to do that, I think send out a massive impetus. Rochford, I'm sure, is loving working with the attacking talent that he's got in Donegal, which maybe you could argue he missed a wee bit in Mayo. And I suppose that adds a wee bit of intrigue for on down the line. Rochford got Mayo so close to Dublin, but just missed the firepower at critical moments to get them over the line, and some could say a wee bit of luck. But now with Donegal in that setup, he seems it's a big statement for him to go in as a number 2 as well. But yeah, his whole influence, I don't think it's absolutely massive, but I think it's another part of a very interesting story.
Yeah, that's Enda McGinley speaking on OTB AM this morning. OTB AM brought to you by Avantcard, powered by MasterCard. Just one last one on that game, Brendan. Cavan scored 2-16 in the end, which is a reasonable scoreline to concede when you're in general control. I know after 28 minutes they only had 3 points and some of these scores came late on. Any concerns over the Donegal defence?
Yeah, again, I suppose we keep doing it and maybe we shouldn't be, but I mean, if Cavan were playing Dublin would they hit 2-16, you'd say that would be highly unlikely. Yeah. Now, as you say, there was a run of goals at the end. I don't think it was any surprise that last goal, Neil McGee wasn't on the pitch. You know, he came off and took a break. That might be one aspect of it. But I think with Donegal, when they're in control like that, they're maybe, if you look at Dublin, sometimes they seem to be so ruthless, and there's so many guys biting to get into the team. When they come on, they really go for teams. I think with Donegal, they probably sat back and they had that massive cushion every time. They don't look like a team just wants to lay down that complete perfect performance. And I think a huge thing about it is, and you talk about Rochford there, he came in with a fresh, didn't know the players, and he said from day one when he met the lads, I know nothing about you, so I'm just going to evaluate you at training now, as I see you. I haven't seen you play in club, I haven't seen you, just seen you the odd time playing county matches. So he came in with a very fresh, set of eyes on everything. Him and Carl Lacey do most of the training. Paul McGonagall's in the background with Declan Bonner as well. So they've got a great mix of players and people there, and I think that can only be a big plus for Donegal. Yeah. Rochford obviously stays out of the way, he stays up in the stand and lets the lads do the thing on the pitch. But getting back to the joy of football, I think there's a cloud hanging over certain teams, and I just wonder how much in the modern era they're enjoying playing football. If you look at Kerry at the minute, and all the stuff that we've written, question marks this week. If you look at Tyrone, for example, as well, you just wonder, in the systems that they're playing and what they're doing, are they really enjoying the football? And I think that's a big thing with Donegal. Declan Bonner's basically said, we're going to drop in a couple of sweepers, we're going to defend hard, man for man, but when you get the ball, you just go up and play, you use your skills. I'm not going to tell you to be here every time. You'll know when they drop on and when they come out, but when you get the ball, go and play. And I think that's why Donegal now have got that freshness about them, have got real enjoyment about football. That's why I suppose Cavan had to get about them a bit to disrupt that kind of style, but it looks like it's an absolute joy of a team to play in. As you say, all of a sudden in the championship, Donegal were about 6 or 7 down the line, you thought, of maybe taking on Dublin. They've jumped to number 2 now after the performances.
Yeah. Kieran, I'm sure you've played in your fair share of provincial finals where it was a little bit bloodless and a little bit too easy. And Dublin are experiencing that now, and equally Meath, when they look at the final scoreline, those players, it's not great for them either. The whole day just was a bit meh, unfortunately. The first half was unusual kind of situation, 5 points to 1. It's Donegal in 2011, the last time Dublin were held to 5 points in one half of football, but then ultimately order was restored and Meath never kicked on. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to know because the other 3 provincial finals were pretty good games and pretty lively and decent occasions, but this certainly wasn't.
Yeah, no, and it was probably the biggest attendance out of all the games. But again, we're back to our old problem that 45,000 or 47, what was ever there yesterday inside in Croke Park. it still kills the atmosphere. But look, that's, it's the Leinster final. It has to be played in Croke Park. There's nothing they can do about that. But, in fairness to Meath yesterday, they went toe-to-toe. They brought fight. They put plenty of big hits in. All that happened to them yesterday is they just couldn't score. They couldn't. And the more it went on, the more pressure went on every kick. The tighter fellas became in their kicks. They started pulling all their kicks because, I'd say they were tensing up on the kick, so everything was being pulled. Even the frees, even the start of the second half, when the tension was building further, they were all being pulled to near side again. So that's a clear sign that fellas are feeling the not the occasion of the game, but the fact that the occasion of all my family here, all my friends are here. We've 1 point scored, and there's 43 or 4 minutes of football gone. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
As in defensively and going toe to toe with Dublin, they did quite well. If you hold Dublin to 117, you'd probably take that. If you were playing Dublin in the morning and they said, look, Dublin are going to score 117, you'd kind of go, okay, well, we have to go get 21 points somewhere. And you'd have a go of it. It's we're so used to Dublin racking up 30 and 40 points in these games that and a few of their scores came late on Dublin, obviously, so they pulled away. But it was definitely a tough one to be, tough one to sit down and watch, even though we were hoping Meath would eventually get those kicking boots on and actually capitalise on the good play, because they were actually getting into good positions.
Yeah.
And the options weren't really bad either. It was just, I don't know, probably a lack of class really up front that probably cost them in the end.
Yeah. Time is coming against us, Brendan. So before we go, next weekend, Kildare-Tyrone in Newbridge could be a very interesting game. We remember what Kildare did last year against Mayo in Newbridge. And then Mayo-Armagh in McHale Park at 7 o'clock. That game's on Sky. I know you watched the Armagh game, who are certainly in their 5th year under McGeeney, having certainly their best year under him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've had a couple of runs in the back door. Maybe they've not beat a top team, which they did against Monaghan the last day. And sorry to see Maggie Rourke, 7 years on the go there. He's fantastic time with Monaghan, but that team just didn't have any sparkle at all from the league and the championship. But yeah, brilliant. 2-17. It's brilliant to see all this high scoring coming back. Jimmy Clark was unbelievable again, and Campbell, Rian O'Neill, Myrne. This is the difference. You need a sprinkling of players. You need players to inject and come in, and then, as you say, you've got your defensive formation. And Monaghan have all the ingredients, and that's set up for a classic.
Kildare-Tyrone, Kieran, that could be tasty. That could be interesting.
Yeah, I definitely. Newbridge, of course, is going to bring its own. It's on a Newbridge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Newbridge is going to bring its own. Tyrone will be a small bit nervous going down there, kind of like, Kildare will play on the fact that they brought Mayo into Newbridge last year and that they actually knocked them out of the championship. And Kildare will be very hard for Tyrone to beat in Newbridge. It's this kind of tight ground, very kind of like it reminds me of Cusack Park, and then it's that real tight feel to it. And it's smaller than that again, so it'll be packed full of Kildare people the next day. But they're two great games. Armagh and Mayo above in Castlebar is going to be absolutely, I can't wait to see Armagh in the flesh, because I really like the look of them and everything I've seen. I watched 1 or 2 games on BBC, and I really like the look of the way they're playing. But just for them to go up now to Mayo and Castlebar, it's another step up. And I'm sure McGeeney will be looking at the game in Down the last day and kind of going along the lines of Mayo are plodding their way along, and they're thinking we'll get to the Super 8 somehow, and it's up to Armagh to go up to Castlebar and really test out where Mayo are and what Mayo are at this year, because from what we've seen so far, we can't be really sure. They were poor to start the league. They somehow got into the league final. They had a very good result below Tralee. They played really well against Kerry in the final of the league, won the National League, and then went out against Roscommon and made a lot of mistakes and probably cost themselves the game more, and Roscommon played really well. Don't take anything away from Roscommon. So they're 2 brilliant games. At 5 and 7, I'll be covering them on Sky Sports, so looking forward to it.
Give a good plug. Give me your 2 winners. Are you going to go Tyrone Mayo?
I'm going to go Kildare Mayo, just to annoy all my family about Tyrone.
Well, how do you see those 2, Brendan, before we go?
No, I slight lean towards Mayo, but no, Tyrone for me certainly. Listen, I've seen Kildare 4 or 5 times the last 2 years, and compared with last year, I think Kildare are way off the mark what they were. Donegal beat them by, I think, 11 points in Ballyshannon, which basically was a winner-takes-all back to Division 1 game. I just couldn't believe how far back they'd gone. So, no, I think Tyrone will definitely dismantle them. Just Tyrone went ultra defensive against Longford the last day, so they're back to that. I think it'll be very hard to break down, and going forward, I think they'll do enough damage to win that one.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks, lads. We'll leave it there.
Cheers.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye, Joe.